Emily stood at the edge of the dining room, holding a silver tray with shaking hands. The room was full of noise, laughing, talking, clinking glasses. But not once did anyone look at her. She was wearing a plain black dress, simple shoes, and her long dark hair was tied back neatly. She didn't wear makeup like the others. She didn't speak unless spoken to. And most of all, she didn't belong. To the family, she was just the maid, a poor girl her uncle had allowed to live in the house out of pity. The others, her, cousins, aunts, and uncles, treated her like a joke. "Careful, Emily," said her cousin Jane loudly. "You almost dropped the tray. Maybe we should buy you plastic dishes next time." The room laughed. Emily didn't. She lowered her eyes and quietly placed the last drink on the table. At the head of the table sat Mr. Carlton, her rich and powerful uncle. He was old now, thin and pale, but his sharp eyes were watching everything. He didn't laugh with the others. He looked straight at Emily and gave her a small nod. No one saw it. No one ever noticed how the old man treated Emily differently. Quietly, kindly, but only when no one else was watching. After dinner, the family gathered in the living room. Music played, drinks flowed. They talked about money, cars, and business. Emily cleaned quietly in the kitchen. "She's so plain," one cousin whispered. "I don't even know why Uncle lets her stay here," said another. "Maybe he feels guilty," laughed a third. "You know, charity project." They all laughed again. Emily heard everything, but she said nothing. She always said nothing, but inside her chest, a fire was building. Not anger, not revenge, just waiting. Later that night, as the house went quiet, Emily went to check on Mr. Carlton. He was lying in bed, coughing softly. The machines beeped beside him. His skin looked pale and dry. "Uncle," she said gently, "do you need anything?" He opened his eyes slowly. "Just you, child." She sat beside him and held his hand. "They laughed again tonight," he whispered. Emily didn't reply. "I saw everything," he said. "They mock you because they're scared, because they don't know what I know." She looked at him, confused. He smiled weakly. "Emily, they think you are nothing, but they're wrong, very wrong." Her heart beat faster. "What do you mean?" she asked. The old man reached for a drawer and pulled out a small envelope. "After I'm gone, the lawyer will read my will. But this letter is just for you." Emily stared at it. Her fingers didn't move. "Read it when the time comes," he said. "You'll know when." A tear ran down his cheek. "I couldn't protect you before, but now you must protect yourself." The next morning, the house was silent. Mr. Carlton had passed away in his sleep. The news spread fast. Family members flew in from other cities. Everyone wore black. Everyone pretended to cry, but Emily knew the truth. They weren't sad. They were waiting to find out what they would get. That evening, as she cleaned the edge of the hallway, she overheard them again. "I bet he left me the house," said Jane. "No way," said Robert. "I was always his favorite." "Not that stupid girl, I hope," said Aunt Lydia. "She doesn't even belong to this family." Emily held the envelope tighter in her hand, still sealed, still heavy with mystery. At midnight, when the house was asleep, Emily stood alone in the study, the place where Mr. Carlton always wrote his letters. She looked at the large painting of him above the fireplace. His eyes were kind, his face was wise, and somehow still watching her. She whispered into the room, "They all treated me like nothing, like a shadow in the corner." Her voice shook. "But you knew something, and now, so do I." She held up the envelope. Then, slowly, carefully, she placed it in her pocket. She wasn't ready to open it yet, but she knew one thing for sure. Everything was about to change. The sky was gray, and a light drizzle fell over the city as black. Cars pulled up in front of the old church. Inside one of them, Emily sat quietly in the back seat, wearing a black dress and holding the same envelope Mr. Carlton had given her. She hadn't opened it yet, not because she was scared, but because she was waiting for the right moment. The others didn't notice her. They never did. As the family stepped out of their expensive cars, their faces showed no pain, no real sadness, only fake frowns and forced tears. Emily watched them closely. Every move they made was for show. Aunt Lydia was the first to speak. "Such a shame," she said, holding her black umbrella. "He was a good man, even though he made some strange choices near the end." Strange choices. Emily knew exactly what she meant. Robert, Mr. Carlton's oldest nephew, whispered to his sister Jane, "I heard the lawyer's coming after the service. Bet I'm getting the company." Jane laughed softly. "I want the house in Paris." Not a single person asked about the old man's last wishes. Not one person said they missed him. Not even one said they loved him. Inside the church, the funeral was quiet and formal. The priest spoke of Mr. Carlton's success. His leadership, his legacy. Emily sat in the last row. She didn't speak. She didn't cry. But her hands were clenched tightly around the envelope. Halfway through the ceremony, the wind howled outside. A window creaked open. A soft gust of wind made the candles flicker. Some said it was just the weather. But Emily felt something else, like a whisper, like a presence watching over her. After the service, the family gathered in Mr. Carlton's mansion, the same place where they had mocked Emily just days ago. The mood was completely different now. They were dressed in black, but their eyes were sharp and full of hunger. Lena, the family lawyer, stood at the center of the room holding a large folder. She cleared her throat and said calmly, "As requested by the late Mr. Carlton, I will now read the will. Please, no interruptions." Everyone sat down, but not quietly. "I know he left me the company," Robert mumbled. "He loved me like a daughter," Jane whispered to her husband. "I cleaned up after him for years," Aunt Lydia said, rolling her eyes. "He owed me." Emily stood in the corner just like always. But this time, her heart beat louder than ever. She wasn't nervous. She was ready. Lena opened the folder and pulled out a USB stick. "Before the will is read, Mr. Carlton left a video message. His exact words were, 'Play this first. Everything depends on it.'" A hush fell over the room. The TV was turned on and the video began. It was a simple recording. Mr. Carlton sat in his study wearing a soft sweater. His voice was calm, but his eyes were sharp. "If you're watching this," he said, "then I'm gone. And I'm sure many of you are sitting there hoping for a piece of what I've built." The room grew tense. "But before you hear what I've left behind, I want to speak about someone you all ignored." The camera zoomed in slightly. "Emily." The entire room froze. Heads turned. Whispers started. She was never just a girl in the background. She was never a servant. She was never weak. You thought she was invisible. But she was always the one watching. The one learning. The one I trusted the most. Jane's face turned red. Robert stood up. "What is this?" "Sit down," Lena said firmly. "Let it finish." Back on screen, Mr. Carlton leaned forward. "There's a letter I gave her, a personal one. She may choose to share it, or she may not. That is her right." He paused. "To the rest of you, if you feel angry, confused, or betrayed, perhaps you should ask yourselves one question. Did you ever really love me? Or did you only love my money?" Then the screen went black. Silence filled the room. Jane's hand shook. Robert stared at Emily, full of rage. But Emily didn't look back. She didn't smile. She didn't cry. She simply took a deep breath. and waited. Lena closed the laptop and pulled out the official papers. "Now," she said, voice cold and clear, "let's begin reading the will." The room was filled with silence, thick like smoke. No one moved. No one spoke. The screen had gone black, but Mr. Carlton's words still echoed in the air. "Did you ever really love me? Or did you only love my money?" Emily stood by the wall, hands folded, still holding the unopened letter. Her eyes were calm, but inside, her heart was racing. Everyone in the room had just been hit with the truth, a truth they didn't expect and didn't want. Jane was the first to break the silence. That video doesn't mean anything," she snapped. "He was old, he was confused." "No, he wasn't," Lena, the lawyer, replied sharply. "He made that recording 3 weeks ago. He was perfectly clear. He planned everything." Robert stood up. "This is some kind of trick," he said. "He loved me like a son. He always said I'd run the company." Lena opened the will. "Let's begin. I'll read it exactly as Mr. Carlton wrote it." She cleared her throat and began reading. "To my nephew Robert, I trusted you once. But I watched how you changed. You became proud, greedy, and careless with others. So I'm giving you nothing of the company. Learn to build something on your own." Robert's mouth fell open. He turned red with anger. "To Jane, you played the perfect niece in public. But I know what you said behind closed doors. I leave you my old tea set from the Paris house." "Nothing more," Jane gasped. "That's impossible. He told me I was special," Lena continued. "To Aunt Lydia, you kept my house running, yes, but you did it for money, not for love. I leave you $5,000 for your years of service, and a book, How to Be Kind. Please read it." Aunt Lydia looked like she would faint. The rest of the room was dead silent. Then Lena paused. She looked up at Emily. "To Emily," she read softly. "The only person who saw me not as a wallet, but as a man." Everyone turned to stare at her. Lena continued. "To Emily, I leave the following: full ownership of my company, Carlton Enterprises. All properties under my name, including the Paris and London homes." Emily stood alone at the front door of Mr. Carlton's mansion, now her mansion. She didn't have the key. She didn't need it. Lena, the lawyer, had handed it to her after the will reading, along with a folder full of papers. Emily hadn't even opened the folder yet. She simply placed it in her bag and walked through the garden gates. She remembered every step, every stone in the path, every corner of the garden where she used to water the flowers. She had walked this path many times before, but always with her head down. Today, she walked with her head held high. She unlocked the door and stepped inside. The house was silent, cold, still. This used to be Mr. Carlton's world. Now it was hers. She ran her hand along the smooth marble table in the entrance. She had polished it so many times. Now it felt different. Now it belonged to her. She walked room by room, past the golden mirror where Aunt Lydia used to scold her for cleaning too loudly, past the grand piano Jane always played for guests, only to show off, past the library where Mr. Carlton had once invited her to sit and read. He was the only one who ever offered her a chair, and finally, she reached the study, his study. The door creaked as she opened it. His scent still lingered. Leather books, old paper, and warm tea. She sat in his chair. She had never done that before. From this chair, Mr. Carlton had made deals, written speeches, and watched his empire grow. Now, it was Emily's chair. She looked at the bookshelf, and something caught her eye. A small red leather notebook tucked between two larger books. She pulled it out slowly. On the front, written in gold, were the words, "For Emily, read when you're ready." Her hands trembled slightly as she opened it. Inside were short notes, memories, advice. You always notice the small things, Emily. That's why I trusted you. The ones who speak the loudest often have the least to say. You were quiet, but your silence held strength. They laughed at you because they couldn't understand you. That is their weakness, not yours. Page after page, her eyes filled with tears. He had been watching her all along, not to judge her, but to understand her, to protect her, to guide her. And now, even in death, he was still doing it. She closed the notebook and placed it gently on the desk. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from Lena. The board members want to meet you. They didn't expect the change in leadership. Do you want me to schedule a meeting? Emily stared at the message. Her chest tightened. She had never been in a business meeting before. She had never worn a suit, never stood in front of powerful men and women and told them what to do. But she remembered Mr. Carlton's words. You don't need to become louder to be powerful. You only need to speak when it matters. She typed a simple reply. Schedule. It. I'm ready. That night, Emily didn't sleep in the servants' quarters. She walked up the grand staircase and entered the master bedroom, the one no one ever let her clean because it was too private. Now it was hers. The bed was large and soft. The walls were lined with paintings. The windows looked out over the city, glowing with golden lights. She sat on the edge of the bed, silent. She didn't feel joy. She didn't feel revenge. She felt something deeper. Responsibility. She had been given a chance that most people only dream of, and she knew that tomorrow the real challenge would begin. In the darkness, her phone buzzed again. This time it was a different message. Anonymous. No. Name. No photo. It read, You don't deserve any of this. You'll ruin everything. Emily stared at the message. She didn't reply. She simply turned the phone off, walked to the window, and looked out at the city. Let them talk. Let them doubt. Let them try to bring her down, because for the first time in her life, she wasn't the maid in the shadows anymore. She was the woman in charge, and she wasn't afraid. The morning sun poured through the tall glass windows of the Carlton Enterprise building. Its golden light touched every corner of the polished floors and silent hallways. People moved quickly, suits, files, coffee in hand. But the air was different today. Everyone knew something had changed. At exactly 9 a.m., the top executives gathered in the large boardroom on the 30th floor. These were the people who had worked under Mr. Carlton for years. Powerful men and women in expensive suits, sitting at a long table of dark wood. Whispers filled the room. Who's really in charge now? She was just the maid, right? There's no way she can handle this. Then the door opened, and Emily walked in. She didn't wear a designer suit. She wore a plain navy blue dress. Simple, neat, but her posture was straight, her eyes clear, and her steps confident. The room went silent. One of the board members, Mr. Grant, a tall man with silver hair, stood to greet her. Miss Emily, he said, half smiling, we didn't expect you to attend this meeting alone. Emily nodded politely. I thought it was important, she replied, since I'm now the majority owner. The sentence landed like a stone in water, soft but deep. Everyone heard it. Everyone felt it. Mr. Grant cleared his throat. Of course, we're just curious about your plans. Another member, Ms. Doyle, spoke up. The company is complex. This isn't a household, it's a business. Are you prepared to run something of this size? Emily looked around the table. 12 people, all older, all confident, all doubting her. But she didn't flinch. You all worked with Mr. Carlton, she said. You knew how he ran this place, and you also knew how he saw people. They nodded slowly. He believed in respect, Emily continued. But only a few of you showed him that, and even fewer showed it to the people who worked under you. A few looked uncomfortable. Mr. Grant leaned forward. What are you saying, Ms. Emily? She opened a folder she had brought, the one Lena gave her. Inside were pages of notes written by Mr. Carlton himself. He kept records, she said. He knew who was loyal and who only smiled when money was involved. She slid a few pages across the table. I've read everyone. The room shifted. Some looked nervous. Some looked angry. Others looked shocked. Emily continued. I'm not here to destroy anything, but I won't be a silent owner. I'm here to build, and that means starting with honesty. Mr. Grant leaned back, now unsure of himself. And what do you plan? To do first? He asked. Emily smiled slightly. Change how people are treated. She tapped a small document in front of her. I'm increasing the salaries of all janitorial and maintenance staff by 25%, and we're creating an employee fund for workers in crisis. Ms. Doyle frowned. That's unusual. So was leaving this company to me, Emily replied. But Mr. Carlton trusted me, and I won't let him down. The room fell silent again, and then something unexpected happened. A younger man at the far end of the table stood up. He was quiet until now. I think she's right, he said. This company has forgotten what it was built on. Mr. Carlton believed in people, not just numbers. Emily looked at him. She didn't know his name yet. Thank you, she said softly. Mr. Grant looked around, clearly unsure how to respond. The room wasn't in his control anymore. It belonged to someone else now. After the meeting, as the others slowly left, Mr. Grant walked up to Emily. I didn't expect you to be like this, he said honestly. I know, Emily replied. Most people didn't. He looked at her, eyes narrowed. I'm not your enemy, but this world is tough. Are you really ready for it? Emily looked out the window. The city stretched far and wide. She wasn't just a housemaid anymore. She was now the heart of something powerful. I cleaned this building for 5 years, she said. I know every corner. I saw what people never noticed, and I'm not afraid of hard work. She turned to him. I'm not here to play games. I'm here to lead. That night, Emily returned to the mansion. She sat at Mr. Carlton's desk, the red notebook open beside her. She didn't smile. She didn't cry. She simply breathed. Tomorrow would bring more doubts, more tests, more whispers behind her back. But today she stood her ground, and in that moment, Emily knew one thing for certain. They didn't expect her, but they would never forget her. A week had passed since the meeting. Emily had stepped into her new role with quiet strength. She didn't shout orders or show off her power. She listened, she observed, and she made changes slowly, one by one. But something inside her still felt heavy. It wasn't just the pressure. It was something else, something she didn't understand yet. One morning, while walking through the mansion's library, Emily found an old wooden box hidden behind a row of thick books. It had no lock, just a dusty lid. Inside were photographs and letters. She picked up the first photo, a young woman smiling. Her eyes looked familiar. Her heart skipped. Was this her mother? Emily sat on the floor, surrounded by papers, old letters, hospital records, photos, and one very strange envelope, with her name on it, written in Mr. Carlton's handwriting. She opened it with shaking hands. Dear Emily, there is something you need to know about your past. I never told you while I was alive because I wanted to protect you. But you deserve the truth now. Emily's eyes filled with tears. The letter continued. Your mother was my daughter. The room suddenly felt smaller. She made mistakes in her youth. She married a man I never approved of. When she passed away, you were just a child. No one in the family wanted to raise you. So they sent you far away. Emily's hands trembled. I found you years later, working in one of my homes, as a maid. I knew who you were the moment I saw your eyes, but you didn't know me, and I wanted to watch you grow without the weight of the Carlton name. Her breath caught in her throat. All this time, she wasn't just the maid, she was his granddaughter. Emily couldn't speak, couldn't move. The truth hit her like thunder in a silent sky. Mr. Carlton had known. He had watched over her, protected her, taught her, quietly, from the shadows, and no one else had known. Maybe that's why he had chosen her over the rest of the family, not just because of her heart, but because of blood. She had Carlton blood in her veins. That night, she sat alone in the grand hall of the mansion, the letter in her lap, the fire crackling nearby. Then she heard a knock at the door. Lena, the lawyer, stood outside. "I had a feeling you found the box," she said gently. Emily nodded, eyes red. "Why didn't you tell me?" Lena stepped inside, her expression soft. "He made me promise. He didn't want you treated differently just because of your name. He believed you had to earn respect, not inherit it." "But I was his family," Emily whispered. "And that's exactly why he watched over you so closely," Lena replied. "He loved you more than anyone." They sat together in silence, two women in a house full of secrets, and for the first time, Emily didn't feel alone anymore. The next day, the news began to spread quietly among the staff. Some didn't believe it. Others whispered in hallways. "She's Mr. Carlton's granddaughter? No wonder he left her everything." But Emily didn't care about their words anymore. She knew who she was now. She wasn't just a servant who got lucky. She was part of a legacy, and she had earned her place in it. Still, not everyone was happy, especially Aunt Lydia, who had stayed silent since the will reading. Until now, Emily received a letter from her. No greeting, no warmth, just one cold sentence. "Enjoy your time on the throne, child. It won't last." Emily read it twice, and then she smiled. Aunt Lydia still didn't understand. This wasn't about a throne, it was about truth. It was about becoming who you really are, even when the world sees you as nothing. And Emily had done just that. That evening, she walked into the mansion's garden. The same garden where she used to plant flowers and trim hedges under the hot sun. She sat on a bench and closed her eyes. Her past was no longer a mystery. Her identity was no longer hidden. She knew the Yui truth. And the truth made her stronger, stronger than anyone had expected, stronger than she had ever believed, and the storm was not over yet. But now, she was ready. It started with a phone call, a quiet morning in the mansion. Emily was in her study, reading a report about company changes. Her cup of tea sat untouched. Then her phone buzzed. "Unknown number," she answered. "Hello?" A familiar cold voice replied. "So, you've made yourself comfortable." It was Aunt Lydia. Emily sat up straight. "What do you want?" Aunt Lydia didn't waste time. "You think this is over? That just because your name is written on a piece of paper, you belong here?" Emily said nothing. She listened. "You're not one of us. You never were. And I promise you, we're going to take everything back." Then the line went dead. Emily stared at the phone for a long time. A chill ran through her. Aunt Lydia had always been distant, proud, and bitter. But now she sounded dangerous. That afternoon, strange things began to happen. Her company email was flooded with complaints that didn't make sense. Ms. Emily denied this contract. She approved this without the board. Financial errors traced back to her decisions. But Emily hadn't done any of it. Someone was trying to frame her. Lena came to the office right away. "They're trying to ruin your image," she said. "False reports, Fake signatures, leaked messages. Emily felt the pressure growing. How is this even possible? It's coming from inside the company, Lena replied. Someone on the board. Someone working with Lydia. Emily had fought to be respected. Now, she was fighting to be trusted. She called a board meeting for the next day. The room was tense. Faces looked confused, some guilty, some ready to attack. She stood at the head of the table, not with anger, but with calm. Someone is trying to destroy this company from within, she said, and I won't let it happen. Mr. Grant leaned forward. Do you have proof of that? Emily opened a folder. One by one, she laid out the evidence. Forged documents, false reports, emails from fake addresses, even secret recordings from an employee brave enough to help her. The room fell silent. This is serious, Ms. Doyle said, slowly. It is, Emily replied. And it's not just about me. It's about protecting what Mr. Carlton built. Then she looked around. Whoever helped Lydia, whoever betrayed this company, will be removed. That night, Emily returned. To the mansion, she was exhausted, but she couldn't sleep. Memories of being the housemaid rushed back. She had once stood in these same hallways holding a mop, not $1 million company. She had once cleaned the rooms of the same people who now tried to push her out. But she wasn't afraid, not anymore, because now she wasn't alone. The next day, Lena arrived with news. We found them, she said, 2 board members, secretly communicating with Lydia, planning to sell shares to a rival company. Emily didn't hesitate. They were removed by vote that afternoon. The news made headlines. Carlton family drama turns legal. New owner takes down internal conspiracy. People were watching Emily closely now, not as a lucky girl or a charity case, but as a real leader. Even the staff at the company began to change. They smiled at her in the halls. They respected her voice in meetings. They saw the strength behind her quietness. But Emily knew this wasn't the end. Later that evening, she received a new envelope under her door. No name, no return address, just a card inside with one sentence. We're not finished yet. Emily stared at it. Aunt Lydia wasn't giving up. The battle wasn't over, but Emily felt no fear. She folded the card slowly and placed it in her drawer beside Mr. Carlton's last letter. Then she whispered to herself, You treated me like nothing. And now, I'm the one standing. She looked out the window. The storm had come, but Emily was still standing, and this time, she wasn't backing down. Emily woke up before the sun. The sky outside was still dark. The mansion was quiet. But her heart was loud, beating strong, filled with both fear and fire. Today was the final board meeting, the day everything would be decided. Aunt Lydia had called for a vote, a full challenge to remove Emily as head of the company. The family had pushed hard. Lies, lawyers, backroom talks. They had tried everything, and now it would come down to one final decision. Emily stood in front of the mirror. No makeup, no fancy jewelry, just a neat black suit and calm eyes. She wasn't going there to beg. She was going to fight with truth. Lena entered the room holding a folder. The evidence is solid, she said. We've tracked all their illegal moves, the fake accounts, the stolen shares, even the plan to sell company secrets. Emily nodded slowly. And the rest of the board? They're split, Lena said honestly. Some still support Lydia. Others are watching you closely. Today, you have to make them believe. Emily took a deep breath. Then let's give them something to believe in. The meeting room was full. All board members, shareholders, some press reporters outside the glass walls, and in the front row sat Aunt Lydia, elegant, cold, smiling like the queen of a game she thought she had already won. Emily walked in slowly. Some eyes looked curious, some cold, some hopeful. The chairman stood. "We're here to vote on the leadership of the Carlton group. Before that, both sides will present their case." Aunt Lydia stood first. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, "I respect the late Mr. Carlton. He was my brother, but let's be honest. He made a mistake in his final days. He handed over his life's work to a girl who scrubbed floors. Some people looked uncomfortable." She continued. "This company needs experience. It needs family, not some lost child found in the basement." Emily didn't move. She just listened. Aunt Lydia ended her speech with a fake smile. "We all want what's best for the Carlton legacy, and that means correcting a mistake." She sat down. And then it was Emily's turn. She didn't use the microphone. She just walked to the center of the room. "When I was a maid, I never imagined I would stand here," she said quietly.